the whole situation in master program. And then my two master programs, one in early 2000, right after I graduated from college. The other one I attended when I was almost 40-year old. I returned to school and get my Master of Social Work. And between that, I got a PhD degree too. I'm kind of familiar with the graduate school setting, and I want to learn more from you. What you're expecting, and if there's any worries. Um, okay, let me. Okay. Um, there are definitely more audience, a bigger audience than we thought. We were expecting 10-person actually. So I was hoping I can ask everybody to introduce themselves and answer those questions. But now we have about 60 students here. So would anyone like to volunteer and share a little bit about how are you feeling toward grad school? What are your dreams? What you want to achieve? What are your worries and fears? Answers to neither of the questions have to be academic. It can be personal, it can be, something about life, anything. Anyone? Yes, please, Alexandra.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Alexandria. I go by Alex for short. Um, I am entering a program in engineering education research. So my dream is to become a tenure track professor. And I'm more excited than I am nervous. But something that may worry me is maybe that a lot of people say that graduate school is nothing like undergrad. So just transitioning smoothly. But I am very appreciative of programs like this. So I do feel like I have the resources I need to succeed. So yeah.
Thank you so much. Thanks. Anyone else? No one? You can jump in. You don't have to raise your hand. No one, really? Okay.
Hi,
Okay.
I'm
Oh,
I'm Rachel. I'm entering a master's program for the School of Environment and Sustainability.
right.
And I guess I'm a little nervous because I've been out of school for a while now. Um, so yeah, just kind of getting back into it and like Alexandria said that people say it's not like undergrad, so just not entirely sure what to expect and how it's gonna go.
Totally. Thanks a lot for sharing, Rachel. Nice meeting you. Is there any other students want to share? Okay, let's
I
move
can go.
on. Oh, I heard something.
I can go. Um,
Okay,
Hi
thanks.
everyone. I'm Rebecca, and I'm originally from California, but currently in Southwest Washington for a gap year. And with regards to grad school, I think I'm feeling more excited overall. I'll be entering the Educational Studies Master's program with a concentration in designing for innovation, learning, instruction, and technologies. So, in terms of dreams after graduate school, I'm hoping to um, either join like an ed tech company like BrainPop or Amplify or pursue like further studies with a PhD. And I guess my worries and fears is just like figuring out what exactly within like the education technology realm I want to go into, and then um, also navigating like time management in grad school, especially since I want to like have the get involved on campus and whatnot, but I don't know how to balance that with like academics and research and stuff.
Yeah, thank you, Rebecca. Yeah, thank you. Nice meeting you. All right. So yes, grad school could be nerve-wracking. What are the challenges in grad school, especially master programs? Um, some of you already mentioned it's very different from undergrads, right? What specific challenges are you expecting? Anyone would like to pop up, brainstorm? Besides it's being very different, different in what way? Oh. Just checking the chat if anyone typing there.
And chime in.
Okay.
For me, I think the class times may be longer than undergrad.
Right. Maybe 3 hours long. In
Yeah.
undergrad, they usually separate to two classes, 1.5 hours for each. Yeah. Yeah. Anything else?
I would like to add, like, it's great that I got into such a nice program, but I always have like an imposter syndrome whether I can actually like keep up with the material and like, be worthy of this program,
Yeah. Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Yeah. That's imposter syndrome is so common in grad school. Sounds like everybody feels, oh, I just got in because I was lucky. I'm actually not as good as my CV shows. Yeah, thank you. It's a very competitive, could be intimidating experience. You're gonna work with like world-class scholars, right? That's intimidating. Anything else? I listed a few challenges. I feel it's time limit, especially for master program. PhD program could be 5, 6 years, so you have more time to adjust yourself. But master program, usually 2 years, right? There are so many things to be done. And master program usually have less financial aid than PhD programs, right? It's expensive here, the tuition expensive, living expense, it's expensive in Ann Arbor. Because of time limit and financial pressure, you have to multitask, right? You need to, this is all the information I collected from my client, my students' clients here. So they told me they have to apply for internship, apply for jobs, and finishing like final papers and attending seminars and maybe have a part-time job. So a lot of things to juggle. And for many of you, you're coming to this new city you've never been, maybe a new country you've never been, right? So cultural adjustment. And ultimately, I think there's uncertainty, right? You may think, oh, my classmates in undergrads, they are having a real job, they're earning money, earning real salary, but I'm here, I'm not sure what's the next step, right? So all of this add up to our stress. So you can see this cartoon showing how can we be a possibly human in grad school. It's not very easy, and all those things stretch you out. But does it have to be like this, right? This is something I really want you to pay attention to. I think this is very useful. This is a curve, stress curve, right? So when we have too little stress, we're sort of laid back, inactive. And when the stress increase a little bit, actually our performance go up, which is a great thing. Stress is not always a bad thing. But at a certain point, if the stress become overwhelming, then it cannot motivate us anymore. It will do the opposite. It will exhaust us and make us feeling fatigue and make us feel like we're losing our motivations, right? We don't want to do anything because we're so stressed. So if the stress is too high, the performance start to go down, right? So this is the difference between the very weird word eustress versus distress, right? The eustress is a good kind of stress. And the distress to really make you stop functioning well, stop perform well, right? So what we want to do is to pay attention to the stress level. So before it reach this turning point, we can do something, right? So that we can make sure our performance is within this range. So how to spot this turning point? First of all, learn your own stress signals. Your body and mind and emotion and feeling will tell you, right? The stress is too high. And second, identify your sources of stress. What made you stressed? And then develop healthy coping strategies. We'll go to each of them to details. Stress signals. Now I have more questions for you now. I want to move this one to my small screen. Hold on. It's weird to, okay, here. So anyone would like to share some stress signals? So what do you feel when your body and mind and emotion tell you you're stressed, you're overstressed? Anyone? Yeah, Alexandria?
Increased heart rate or headaches.
Yeah, increased headache and heart rate and headaches. Thank you. Anyone else?
Dr. Lane, there's some comments in the chat too
Okay.
that are coming in.
Thank you.
No worries. It seems
Lots
like
of
the students have some experience with that.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. There's a lot. Hard time falling asleep. Yeah, feeling overwhelmed, tightness in the chest, can't focus on a single thing, looking at the list of things to do in a loop. Yeah, stress signals, worse sleeping, worrying, cannot sleep, loss of appetite, do not want to do anything. Yes, inability to focus. Great. Excessive drinking. Yeah, very strong desire to procrastinate by scrolling social media. Exactly. Thank you. That's why I was, the topic is about time management and procrastination, like why I'm talking about stress. Exactly. Because when we're stressed, we begin to procrastinate, right? So here I listed something, and of course, this is the symptoms are not limited to this. Some people could become very irritated when you're driving. You just feel angry to random cars, right? And rumination. After a presentation, you spend hours thinking, did I do well? What should I have done, right? Insomnia, stress eating, or the loss of appetite, lack of motivation, and procrastination, and so on and so forth. So we identify the stress signals and what could be the sources of stress. Anyone, please feel free, type on chat, sources of stress, or raise your hand or jump in, anything. Expectations from advisors. Yes. Multiple approaching deadlines. Thank you. Internal pressure, not planning ahead of time, multitasking, peer pressure, not being able to do what we plan to do. Yeah. Thank you. I listed miscommunication, international student, keeping with other responsibilities outside school. Yeah, I thought of I made this list, and of course it's not limited to these points. I think one of the biggest sources of stress is perfectionism. We may want to make everything perfect and do everything we want to do and make each of them perfect, right? And multitasking, yeah. Yeah, strongly agree. Thank you. I mentioned multitasking. There's so many things to juggle. Some of you even had meal plan when you were in undergrad, but right now you need to cook, right? 3 meals a day, and you need to handle tax return, and all those things added up. And lack of rhythm, structure, or reward. This is more often seen in PhD student, but I think it also applies to master students. This is something very different from undergrad school, as some of you mentioned, because think that you are doing this big project. For PhD student, it's a dissertation. For master students, it could be a thesis, right? Before when you were in undergrad school, time, those big tasks was break down by your professors into final exams, midterms, different projects, right? And you finish one and you get reward, which is a break, right? But right now, nobody break it down for you, right? So I often seen PhD students who are saying, I'm sort of in this bubble. I feel like I cannot feel the sense of time. I don't know how to structure my day, right? Because suddenly you don't know what your goals are. If your advisor is away for a month, you're sort of like floating in the air, right? And because you don't break it down to small project, you never get a chance to reward yourself. So you're sort of always stuck in the middle. You don't feel the sense of accomplishment, and you don't feel relaxed either, right? This could be a source of stress and boundary issues. It goes two ways. One is, poor boundary. You don't know how to say no to anyone, to different student organizations. You want to participate everything. And another manifestation of boundary issues is like you think yourself as an island. That you don't communicate. You struggle a lot, but never express it, never ask for help. You have trouble asking for help. That's another way of boundary issues. Comparing oneself with others, right? This is also part of the imposter syndrome, and so on and so forth. So these are the sources of stress, the major ones that I have seen in my clinical experience. How do we cope with it, right? For perfectionism, I think one useful tool is to have this growth mindset. What is growth mindset? Look at these girls, how happy they are. They are so messy. They're in mud, but they are so happy. Know that you have this inner child in you too. And please keep in mind, it's okay, maybe even great to mess things up. I think during this long, decades of socialization, the school and the parents told us, you need to behave, you need to perform, you need to be perfect. And somehow in our mind, it turned out to be, if I'm not perfect, I'm bad, right? But actually, when you were younger, before this socialization started, you didn't think that way. You enjoy playing mud. You enjoy making things messy, right? So always remember that moment. In that way, growth mindset really tackle perfectionism, avoidance, and procrastination. Because underneath perfectionism, avoidance, and procrastination is the fear of failure and self-shaming, right? If I'm not perfect, I cannot fix this anymore. I'm bad. And growth mindset also help us to switch our mind from value-oriented to goal-oriented. What does it mean? I have client coming to me saying, grad student saying, I feel my life is really out of control. I have less control in my life than previously. They said, in college or in high school, middle school, if I work really hard, I can get a good grade, right? But right now, I feel like even if I work really hard, the good result is not guaranteed. I may send out 100, internship application and didn't get anything, which would happen, unfortunately. So this is another big difference between high school, college, and grad school. Sometimes you feel like you're doing things in vain. There are so many things that's out of your control, right? Actually, it is the high school and college gave you this illusion by setting up this exam system. The illusion that if you work hard, you will guaranteed to have a good result. But welcome to the real world. It's not always guaranteed, right? So students feel frustrated and they think, even if I try very hard, I may not get anything. Then why do I try? Then they procrastinate, right? Then they try to avoid doing the work. But what is value oriented? You want to do this kind of job, this kind of work, this internship, that's aligned with your value. So you send out 100 application letters, right? You may not achieve your goal, which is get an internship that you dream of, but you're working towards your values, right? And you are growing in this process. All your efforts were not in vain, even if you didn't get anything concretely, right? So in other words, growth mindset help us to focus more on the process than the results. And I really like this. I don't know if it's a real Banksy quote or no. I didn't fact check, but I really like it, so I just put it here. It says, if you get tired, learn to rest, not to quit. I think this fits grad students perfectly. Many grad students quit. Maybe there are two reasons. One is they learn that they want to do something else, right? Which is really understandable. And maybe it's a good move to take. But for many, they quit because they're tired, because they didn't know how to rest. So allow yourself to rest so that you can work better, right? You can fight better. So people with growth mindset are usually compassionate to themselves. So they would tell themselves, If I'm not in the mood for study, I will try again later. And they will tell themselves, I'm not good at time management. Let me see what I can do about this. So I think all of you are here in order to hearing about that. That's great. That's part of self-care, right? And they will tell themselves, I'm feeling frustrated. What are the healthy activities I can do to bring me some joy? Right? They are thinking of the actions, right? And what the thing they can do to make the situation better, to make them grow. Whereas people with fixed mindset are usually unkind to themselves. Internally, they may tell themselves, I'm lazy, I'm a loser, I'm a failure. And, a worst thought could be, I guess everyone sees me as a loser, I'd better disappear. This is a little bit suicidal already. And then they usually just lock themselves in their apartment, and getting more and more isolated. Yeah. So to tackle perfectionism, keep in mind that we can tune into this channel of growth mindset. Fixed mindset is usually related to trauma. So you can change your mindset. Multitasking, so many things to juggle. I think the one way to deal with this is to know what you want, right? Knowing what you want would help you to prioritize things. So not everything have the same weight in your life. For example, some of you said, oh, I want to be a tenure track professor. I want to get into a PhD program after this. And then think, what do I need to do this? Do I need a 4.0 GPA? Or do I need some original research published? What do I need to reach my goal and focus on that, right? If you just want to find a job in the industry, ask your mentors, your professor advisors, what do I need? Do people really look at my transcript? If the answer is no, then you don't have to try to reach the 4.0 GPA, right? You can focus on other things. So know what you want and ask your advisor, your mentor, what you need. Then you can sort of let go of some less significant things. And lack of rhythm, structure, or reward, one way to tackle them is to set SMART goals. What are SMART goals? Some of you may have heard. SMART goals means specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely or time bound, right? So if you set up an unrealistic, big goal, very generic goal, you can never achieve it. It's not very meaningful to set it, right? So set small goals and achieve it. And I always tend to think the R in SMART means reward yourself, right? Please do that. Think of what you want to do besides study. What's your hobby? What make you feel relaxed, right? Maybe, go for a hike. Maybe do some craft. Maybe cook a good meal for you. So if you achieve that goal, a specific goal, reward yourself. Some students came saying, I'm lazy, I'm bad, I'm not motivated. What's wrong with me? It turned out they're not lazy. They're too hardworking. They don't have life besides study, besides a program. As a result, they have nothing to reward themselves. They have no enjoyment that they can work towards. So of course you have no motivation, right? So don't think your entire life is about the degrees, about the GPA. You know, find something enjoyable and use that as the reward. Is there any questions so far? Am I going too fast? Just want to check. So if you have any question, feel free to jump in. Is that okay? All right. Thank you. So we talk about these three things, three sources of stress and ways to fight against them. What else? Boundary issues. So learn to say no to people or organizations that is not very significant to your goal, right? And also ask for help. Your advisor, of course, they could be scary, as some of you mentioned, could stress you out, but see them as your teammate. See them as a very helpful resource, right? If you feel scared, you avoid them, right? But if you see them as your teammate, you can be more proactive, less confrontational. They are not your high school teacher trying to check what you're doing. Are you hardworking or no? They hope you can be successful. And ask them, how can I be successful? Ask them, oh, this is my weakness, this is my strength. How can I, what kind of path, career path shall I take to let my strength shine, right? And this thoughts, this habit of comparing oneself with others, I would say, know your strengths. Everybody is different. The high school, middle school, high school, college, this GPA system gave you an impression that, we're in this hierarchy, right? Someone's doing better than others. But in grad school, you have more freedom. Everyone is seen as a unique individual, have a unique career path. So what's your strength, right? And affirmative self-talk. This is not cheesy. Some people think this is this is sort of basically lying to yourself. I don't think so. I remember when I was in grad school, I was, assigned to teach a course independently at a very good liberal arts university. Near the university I was doing my PhD program, and I was so nervous. My English was worse than it is now. And as a East Asian person, I look embarrassingly young. I look younger than my students. And I was very nervous. But every time before I went to my classroom, I would sit in my office and do some mindfulness combined with affirmative self-talk and telling myself, you're okay, even if you mess things up, you're okay. You're learning a lot of things from this teaching experience. Even if, you make huge mistakes, you're not getting good student evaluation, you are still lovable, you're still worthy. You can even combine it with your own spiritual tradition, your own religious tradition, and these can be very helpful. Any questions so far? Okay. How do you tell if it's stress procrastination or just lazy procrastination? Very interesting. Thank you for the question. If you have any thoughts, please jump in. For me, I feel like lazy is a moral judgment that people usually, use when they criticize young people, which itself a lazy, something very lazy, right? Why do we dive in a little bit deeper to think, why are you lazy, right? So when we look at this behavior with a little bit more effort, asking why are you lazy, then you see a lot of different things. You know, some of them is avoidance, right? For example, like you remember the stress curve, right? So if there's a lot of stress, but you're procrastinating, then it's definitely stress procrastination, right? If there's no stress, summertime, and you're doing nothing, you're feeling empty inside, you can say it's a lazy procrastination, but I will still ask, then probably you have some issues with meaning of life, right? You only do things when there are external stress, when there are deadlines. But when there's no deadlines, you're doing nothing. You probably have some issues. You're probably wondering, what's the meaning of my life? What do I want to do? Right? I don't think anyone is intrinsically lazy. There must be some deeper meanings for that. Right. Thank you, Rebecca. What if laziness is just shaming, gaslighting ourselves, or allowing others to hitting us, avoiding? Yes, exactly. I totally agree. Totally agree. The label laziness is a lazy label. Yeah. Did I answer your question? Thank you. All right, so we're looking at the resources, the major resources of stress, and we also talk about some useful ways to tackle them. There may be other ways too. Okay, some other strategies. So other strategies specifically for time management, because I was invited here to talk about time management. We talk about a lot of abstract kind of deeper issues. Now let's come back to this concrete thing, time management. Other strategies. I don't know if you have heard of Andrew Huberman. He is a big influencer on YouTube. So let me show you this video. This is very interesting. His theory of conquering procrastination. Can you see my YouTube right now, or is still on the PowerPoint?
It is still on the PowerPoint.
Okay, how can I switch it to my YouTube? Let me see.
We might be able to click on share
Okay.
and
So
choose
I
a different
stop-
window.
Okay, so I stop share here and I choose a different window. Too many windows. Zoom. Okay, share. Here. Do you see my YouTube now?
Yes.
Excellent.
We don't have audio though. I think you might have to share it with and click on the icon. I believe in the share window is going to be on the right-hand side. It says share audio through the Zoom. So like reshare it and then click on that checkbox.
So I just stop sharing first?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then do share again and then click the window. And then before you click share, there's like a an audio button on the right-hand side.
The right audio button on the right hand side. I didn't see any.
It will be, let me see if I can see it. It's going to be under the presenter layout and it's going to say share options and it's going to click, you see share sound.
Share sound. Excellent.
And so you can
Thank
click the YouTube video and that, and it should, we should be able to hear it.
So how can we overcome procrastination? Well, it turns out that there are findings
Can you hear it?
from within the addiction literature that turn out to be very powerful towards leveraging our way out of procrastination. And it has to do with this. You already know, because I've told you probably a dozen times now, that the depth of the trough after a dopamine peak is proportional to how high that peak was and how steep it was, how quickly that peak occurred. It turns out that not only is the depth of the trough proportional to that, but the rate at which you get out of that trough is proportional to how steep that trough is. Let me explain this for you in as clear terms as I possibly can. Imagine you're in an amotivated state. You're just not feeling motivated. You're procrastinating. You may think, okay, the thing to do here is something. I'll clean the house. I'll take care of some bills. I'll do something. Or I'll just wait. Those approaches, as we talked about before, generally don't work, or at least don't work quickly, or they lead you right up to the deadline, and that's the deadline that forces you to get something done, or you just don't get it done and you don't succeed in your goal. That happens a lot as well. However, if you were to take that state of being unmotivated, of procrastinating, and actually do something that's harder than being in that amotivated state, in other words, doing something that's more effortful, even painful, you can rebound yourself out of that dopamine trough much more quickly. So what do I mean you want to put yourself in a state that's worse than or harder than the state that you're in, or do something quote unquote more painful? And here I want to be very clear. I'll say this 3 times, but I'm going to say it for the first time now. When I say more painful, I do not mean doing any kind of tissue damaging or psychologically damaging behavior or anything of that sort that's going to render you injured or not well, even in the short term. That's not what I'm referring to, okay? Let's just get that one out of the way. What I'm referring to is the fact that, for instance, if you're feeling amotivated, but you find yourself cleaning the house as a way to procrastinate, you can say, well, cleaning the house is harder than sitting down and doing nothing. But actually, in that moment or in those moments, that's not the case, or else you wouldn't be doing it. The reality is that the dopamine system works according to what feels hard or easy in the moment. In other words, if you're feeling amotivated, you need to do something and put yourself into a state that's harder than the state you're in. So for instance, if you're sitting around feeling amotivated, or you find yourself tending to tasks that are irrelevant to the goal that you really should be focused on, you need to put your body and mind into a state of discomfort quickly. And the way to do that is to either engage in some tangential activity, meaning an activity not related to your goal that puts your body into a very different state. So here again, I'll default to the obvious one, which is something like cold shower or cold immersion, which not only increases dopamine long-term, or over several hours rather, but for most people is experienced as pain. That pain causes a rebound out of that dopamine trough faster than it would occur if you had just stayed in that amotivated state and waited for it to go away, or done something like cleaning up that for whatever reason felt like it required less friction. When I say friction, I mean limbic friction. Your limbic system is always in this dialogue with your forebrain, and limbic friction goes 2 ways. Limbic friction can be you're tired and you don't want to do something, and so you have to quote unquote motivate to do it, energize yourself to do it. Or limbic friction can be that you're nervous and scared and anxious to do something, and you have to calm yourself in order to lean forward into action in order to do that thing despite the anxiety. I realize this can be a little bit confusing as a concept, so I want to go into a bit more detail. Let's imagine that you or somebody else does not like to exercise. You don't want to exercise, and you're trying to get your minimum of 5 days per week exercise, and you're just not motivated to do it. There are a couple different techniques to doing this. Assuming you've taken care of all the baseline stuff, all the foundational stuff we talked about earlier, and you're just not getting in gear, and you find yourself, checking your phone, or maybe you're tending to some tasks, obviously those things are quote unquote easier for you, meaning they cause less limbic friction than engaging in exercise. The typical advice would be just exercise for 1 minute, okay? Just get 1 minute of exercise or 5 minutes, and then use the successful completion of that 1 or 5 minutes as a milestone that allows you to then move to the next milestone. And indeed, that approach can work. And it's exactly what I'm describing here when I say that you're in a state of lack of motivation or procrastination or both, and you need to put yourself into a more painful, not less painful state. So what do? You push up against that friction and you exercise for a short while, and then that pops you out of that trough. That's possible, but for a lot of people, even that won't be possible because they just can't get motivated, or they do that 1 minute or 5 minutes and they're just like, okay, I'm still in the trough. I'm not actually feeling that great. In those circumstances, it makes sense to do something that's tangential to the whole path that you're trying to pursue, this goal that you're trying to pursue. That is, believe it or not, much worse than just being amotivated. And when I say worse, I don't mean picking some task that normally you don't like to do, but now you're willing to do. I mean, literally thinking about what would be worse than being in this state. Again, without causing yourself tissue or psychological damage. What would be worse? Well, cold water would be worse for many people, very cold water. So the key is to figure out something that, for lack of a better way to put it, really sucks, and yet is safe. And by doing that, you steepen the trough, you steepen the slope of the trough, which we know brings you back to your baseline level of dopamine more quickly. Now, for some people, that will be deliberate cold exposure through cold shower, ice bath. And I have to tell you that if you're cringing as I say this, well, then there you go. You now have a tool that you know you cringe even when you just think about, and therefore represents a great tool for you. So if I'm procrastinating to do something I really need to do, should I just simply wait for that procrastination to evaporate? No. Will it eventually evaporate? Maybe. Will a deadline eventually surface that will trigger me into an anxious or activated state that will allow me to complete what needs to be done? Maybe. Hopefully. But better would be to get out of that amotivated state, that state of procrastination, quickly.
Okay. Can you hear me now? Let me stop sharing this one, and I can, okay, I can share my slides. Okay. Here. Yeah. Okay. I think I really like this this idea because it touches upon so many interesting issues. You may have heard of this idea called procrastivity, which means in order to procrastinate, you engage in some, activities which look like healthy, like tidying up your room, right? Look like innocuous, but actually you're procrastinating the most important thing that you're supposed to do. So Andrew Huberman, who is a neurobiologist at Stanford, here is talking about, no, we don't want to procrastinate. We want to deepen this dopamine trough. In my culture, in China and Japan, this cold shower method is historic. Old people mention about that all the time, how it can, can generate this productivity. If you don't like cold shower, you can wait for Michigan winter. In Michigan winter, you can go out of your apartment, stay there for 5 minutes and come in, right? And if you hate coldness, sometimes I tell my client to do push-ups. If you can normally do 10, you do 12, like push yourself beyond the limit. So that's create this, what Andrew Huberman called micro sucks, and then that will bounce you back. So when you're after doing those micro sucks and you turn to your dissertation or final paper, you feel it's a downhill slope. If any of you have kids, if you know some of your classmates in your program have kids, you'll notice how productive they are, because compared with taking care of kids, writing a paper is an easier thing, right? So another matter related to this is just 5 minutes, right? If you can do that, for example, you don't want to write your internship application, tell yourself just 5 minutes, just give a try. 5 minutes, hyper focus. And at the end of the 5 minutes, you may want to continue to do it, right? If you can do that without taking a cold shower, go for it. This one is quite practical and basic. Lock the cell phone or apps or browsers. There are apps that would help you to do that. You can Google, ask around what's the best app to help you do that, or just leave your phone in another room. And know your pattern, right? Know, because everybody is different. How, in what situation you are most productive, right? Some people are early bird, some people are night owls. So if you're early bird, you do your most important thing in the morning, right? If you are more productive and creative at night, then you can deal with some errands in the morning, some, admin stuff, and then you do your creative things at night. Enjoy this flexibility at grad school. And some people like a big chunk of time, but in my personal experience, it doesn't work for me. If I tell myself, okay, you have 5 hours in the library, I will for sure procrastinate. And I found that myself, I have a 10 a.m. appointment with a doctor. I have a 12 p.m. appointment with a librarian. So I deliberately chop my days into small parts, and those hours in between, I can be very productive. So don't feel bad if you find yourself in the library with your mind wandering after giving yourself the whole day in the library. It's very natural. So try the other way, right? Don't go into the self-blaming, trope, thinking yourself as lazy. Because maybe it's because you're working so hard, you're pushing yourself so hard, but try to change the approach, right? And see how it works. Some people love studying together. We have a writing center called Sweetland. Sometimes they offer study group, so you can, share your commiserate with your fellow graduate student, and then you can reward yourself with a nice meal after that. I think it's a good strategy too. All right. Let me check if there's anything. Oh, yes. Hold on. Somebody mentioned Opal. Yes, my client mentioned that to me too. So sounds like it's a good it's a app with good reputation. I know there are like paid version and free version. I don't know the difference, but maybe you can start with free version. Flora, great. You got wonderful information in the chat. Please check it out. Thank you, everyone. Yeah. Pomodoro method, yes, right. It's like a longer version of just 5 minutes, Pomodoro method, sometimes people say, okay, give yourself 45 minutes and then a 10 minutes break. But for some people, 45 minutes is still so long. Maybe you can shorten it and see that maybe that may be motivate you better. Having kids to improve my productivity. Got it. Yeah, that's great. You have a lot of wonderful tips in the chat. Thank you, everyone. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Right now, I introduce some coping strategies, and we talk about the deeper psychological reasons of procrastination. So right now, toward the end of the presentation, I want to introduce you what CAPS does and how to use our service. CAPS, Counseling and Psychological Services. So we have a central office, which is located in Michigan Union, the 4th floor, plus embedded locations. For example, I am in my embedded locations in English department, and this phone number, I'll show you how to find locations of other embedded therapists in a few minutes. And this number is very, very important. This is our front desk of the central office. Why it's important? You can use it, you can call it to make appointment. You can also call it when you are in crisis, 24/7. So if you call us when the office is open, they may connect you with a counselor on duty immediately or after a short wait, either online or they will invite you to come over if you're able to, right? And when the office is closed, you call the number, it will transfer you to a outsourced agency, and you can talk with licensed therapist. If you are in crisis, it's available 7/24. And this is our website. It's very useful too. I will show you in a minute. So this is my beautiful colleagues. Most of them, 99% are therapists, licensed therapists. You can see how diverse they are from different cultural, racial, ethnic, linguistic background. And, you know, we have people of different sexual orientations and gender identities. Please reach out. And some therapists speak multiple languages too. What we do, we provide brief solution-based therapy, mostly individual therapy, but relationship therapy too. There's no session limit. We won't kick you out, you know, after the 5th session, because everybody's different. It depends on your symptom, how severe they are, whether you have insurance, and where are you in the program, right? If you're graduating soon, we'll support you until you graduate. But if you're first year, then we would definitely help you to connect with a private practitioner, you know, who will bill your insurance. The copay is like $20, $25, but you can see them for longer terms. So usually what we do is we still stabilize the students. If we can solve the entire problem, we'll solve it within 4 to 6 sessions on average. If we couldn't, we connect them with providers in the community. And relationship therapy, if one of you in the relationship is U of M student, you are qualified, you're eligible for relationship therapy, but the wait time is a little bit unpredictable. You can ask your own therapist at CAPS to refer to you. And we also provide process and support groups. We usually recruit the group members at the beginning of each semester. So at that time, please pay attention to our website. I'll show you in a minute. So you will see the groups that you like, may be helpful for you, and then reach out. We almost provide procrastination and perfectionism group every semester, right? So crisis support, we talked about that already. Know the number. The number is on the back of your U of M ID. When you're in crisis, just call it. Just call us. And care management, some students not sure about their insurance policies. We have social workers specialized in that who can have appointment with you and guide you through that. And screening, if you feel, if you're not sure you need to see a therapist or see a psychiatrist or not, you can use our online mental health screening system and to get an idea, but you're not required to do that to see us. we also provide peer support. We have individual peer counseling, which peers means your fellow students. We provide some trainings and supervision. They are not licensed, of course, but if you have things that are not confidential, some peer support may be actually more efficient than support from the licensed therapist. And Ufrin Support Network is another peer support system. They don't provide individual counseling. They provide support groups. And the facilitators are your fellow students. Let me show you our website so you know how to find us. So I need to stop sharing this one, and I will share. I'll share the website. Okay. Can you see it now, the website? Give thumb up. Can you see the website? Yes, okay, thank you. So this is our website. You can click here, meet with a counselor. This is the most important button. And it talk about urgent counseling. The one I mentioned, walk-in service, after hour urgent counseling, just call the number. We also have this virtual teletherapy service, not by us, but by a agency that we outsource called You Will here. Why this is important? You can use this teleservice for 6 sessions for free, wherever you are. You don't even have to be in this country. To use CAP service, you have to be located physically in Michigan, in the state of Michigan. But grad students travel a lot. You may do your field work. You may go back home and visit your parents. But if you want to talk to somebody, what to do, use this You Will. It will teach you how to sign up. Each student is covered for 6 sessions for free. So it's useful for the summer, especially. And if you want to schedule appointment, there are 2 ways to do it. One is to see somebody at our central office, which is on the 4th floor of the union. So this is what you can do here, right? And you can reach out to your embedded counselors. Now you click this link. It listed all the embedded therapists. For example, if you are in this College of Architecture and Urban Designing, Aniko Varga is your embedded therapist. You can just email her and reach out. And you can see my information too. This is my information. I have a very complicated direction to my office. Angel Hall is like a labyrinth. So this is how to find your embedded therapist. So they, the strength of the embedded therapist is they know your program better, right? But because there are only 1 at most 2 embedded therapists at your school, they may not have a lot of flexibilities. So the point is, for example, I'm embedded at LSA grad school. My job is to see you, but you don't have to see me, right? So if you prefer, for example, seeing a male therapist, reach out to the central office. You can find male therapist there, right? And Let's Talk is a new little pioneering program we're having. It's very informal. It's like 15 minutes. It's like if you're wondering if you need some mental health service, but you're not sure, you can just pop up to Let's Talk. So we station different therapists in different buildings for a time period. No appointment is needed. You just show up, talk with them for 15 minutes and ask them, what's the next step? What kind of resources I can use, right? And these are the crisis resources. out of the university. All right, so this is our website. Very useful. Play with it, please. And one little thing here, resource. And you scroll down, you can see there's online screening available. So this is something I mentioned before. Okay. Now switch back. I'm almost done. All right. So other resources, I listed some of here and happy to share the slides with you. Wellness coaching, they provide coaching for time management. They are not confidential, whereas CAPS is. So if your issues are not confidential, just need some, coping strategy, feel free to reach out, make an appointment with the coaches, right? Writing Center, sometimes they mention they have study group, or they can help editing your articles, your papers, use them. And student service for students with disability, not only physical disability, but if you have mental illness, if you're struggling mentally, if you have ADHD, you can reach out to them, and they can arrange accommodation for you. And talking about time management, many people are wondering if they have ADHD, right? So CAPS doesn't provide ADHD screening because it's very time consuming. You can click on this link. It's everything you want to know about ADHD and how to get screened in Ann Arbor. Your insurance may cover some of the cost, but you need to reach out to each agency and ask. If you have sleeping issues, this is a page with everything you need to know about sleeping issues and all the resources Ann Arbor and U of M can provide you. And we have therapy docs too. Click this link, you will know where to find them, where to meet them. Wellness Zone, we have this lovely space in these 3 locations in campus. I think Munger is this grad student housing, right? There's one, and there's one right next to CAPS. There are massage chairs, as you see, and if you're new to this area, you may feel very depressed in winter. So there is this therapy light. You can go there and give a try before you purchase one, right? Or you can just use them there if it works. And sometimes the therapy dog will show up. You can check this link to see their schedule and to meet with the therapy dog over there. So, all right, thank you. That's all I prepared to present for you all. I hope you feel it somehow helpful. I would appreciate if you can scan the QR code and leave some feedback and evaluation. So if there's any question, I'm here to answer them. Thank you.
Thanks everyone for attending. Feel free to check the Grad School 101 for more workshops that would be helpful to complement your transition to be a Wolverine graduate student. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, loves, lost hopes, or dreams, I'll be staying on a little bit longer in case you want to ask a more private question. But thank you so much for taking time out of your world, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day.